All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the No Fear Job Search webinar series. My name is Linda, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Jobscan. And sorry if you can hear my cat in the background there. If you're not familiar with Jobscan, we're a Seattle-based company dedicated to making the best online tools for job seekers. And we put the No Fear Job Search webinar series together in response to all the uncertainty and the stress in the world and the job market right now. And our goal with this series is simply to get as many job seekers as we can in front of the people and the tools that can help them. And today's webinar is the 11th of 16 in the No Fear Job Search series. Today we have Bob McIntosh speaking about how to make your LinkedIn profile a recruiter magnet. It is the last week of our series, so we hope to catch you at some of our other sessions this week as we wrap it up. And you can check out that entire schedule at jobscan.co/no-fear. But with all of that, I am excited to turn it over to today's presenter, Bob McIntosh. Welcome, Bob, and feel free to take it away.
Hey, everyone. It's good to know that there are people from all over it looks like all over the country and world watching this. So I lead webinars and workshops at an urban career center in Lowell, Massachusetts. And my claim to fame is developing the first LinkedIn program at the Career Center, and then consequently developing workshops and webinars to support that program. I won LinkedIn Top Voices, one of LinkedIn Top Voices, which means that either I'm really brilliant or I just write a lot. But in any case, that's what I've been doing. I am known pretty much as the LinkedIn authority in my part of the country. I mean, there are many LinkedIn authorities out there who are probably more knowledgeable than me. But in any case, I'm going to take it away. I'm going to start with the presentation. So how to make your LinkedIn a recruiter magnet. Now, you probably wonder what we mean by this, but what we mean by this is that you want to make your LinkedIn profile a magnet to recruiters. And there's more to it than just your LinkedIn profile, as I'm going to explain later on. But you do have to have a well-optimized and really, probably most importantly, a profile that brands you, a profile that tells people exactly what you can bring to employers or to partners, if you're in business and so forth. So that's what we mean by the LinkedIn profile magnet for recruiters. So yes, it is all about branding yourself. And people often ask me, well, I'm kind of interested in two different things. So what should I do? Should I try to explain it in my profile, or should I have two profiles? And I say, well, if you really want to brand yourself, then you have to pretty much set a course in terms of what you want to do. So what we're going to talk about today is the LinkedIn profile checklist. And as I show this, I'd like you all to think, well, do I have this all down pat? Do I need to work on some of it? Okay, so that's what you should ask yourself. We're going to look at pretty much each section. I realize that I'm not looking at accomplishments, which is really a shame for that what LinkedIn has done to it. But in any case, we're not going to look at the accomplishment section. I'm going to critique a profile today, and it's John Shields from Jobscan. And then we're going to have polls. Oh, and by the way, when I do workshops and webinars for the Career Center, I do mention Jobscan as a really great product to really critique your resume and scan it against job descriptions to see really how well they match, and then what you can do in order to make your profile and your resume better. And that's not a sales pitch. I'm just telling you what I tell my folks. All right. So we're going to look at the background image. And this is something that people don't really consider as part of branding you, but it is. Your photo, obviously, that brands you. Headline, I like to call it the branding headline because that's what it should do. Contact info, I'm going to get into that. Some people don't even know what that is. The about section, which way back when was called summary, and then it was called nothing, and then it was called summary again, and now it's about, which I think is appropriate. I think it is about you, your dashboard, articles and activities, which are telling to me when I critique someone's profile, the experience section, which I feel that people don't really put enough effort into, education, licenses and certifications I'm going to pass, volunteer experience I'll pass as well. I mean, I know that there's a lot that goes into, those sections. Skills and endorsements, I'm going to talk a little bit about those. Recommendations, and then as I said, accomplishments, which contain a lot of really good information, such as projects, but I can tell you how to get people to go to your accomplishment section. Interest, I'm going to pass on, and LinkedIn Publisher, I don't know if any of you are writing on LinkedIn, but I think that if you don't have your own blog, then you probably should, because it's a good way to get visibility. Okay, so we're going to start with a poll, and I'm really excited about polls. So if you would all participate, that would be great. And so, is this true or false? Your LinkedIn profile alone will garner a high ranking.
There we are. It looks like we have about 75% of people saying false, the other 25% saying true.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. So let's see what it's all about. Because it isn't all about your profile, it also includes creating a focused network. And what I mean by that is having, connections who are like-minded. I would say that if your network were about 85% like-minded, then you're doing really well, because that means that when you share information, they're going to be interested in it. And speaking of sharing information, then we get to engagement, which I consider the third component of a LinkedIn campaign, and really engaging with your network by either posting, long posts, commenting on long posts, posting articles, commenting on articles. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can engage with your connections, but by simply clicking like or significant or whatever it may be, simply reacting to what other people post, that's not going to do it. That's not really engagement. Okay, I would say that you need to think about communication. How are you communicating with your network? So I'm going to start at the very top, which I call the snapshot area. And these are some of the things that you should keep in mind in your snapshot area, such as having a background image. And a background image, as I said, really does brand you. In this case, I'm showing off my LinkedIn Top Voices award, and I'm going to have that until 2021, or if I get it again, I'll keep it up. But in any case, a quality photo is also important. And I know people are out there saying, I don't know if I really want to put my photo up because it might age me. It might, people might discriminate against me based on age, gender, any other kind of isms. So what I really feel about the photo is that if you don't have one, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because if you don't have a photo, then you are not being memorable, you're not being trusted, and you're not being liked. I think a photo is very important. When I see an ugly gray circle, then I'm not likely to open that person's profile. And then a headline that brands you is really important as well. So I look at it this way: you can either have a headline that is rich in keywords, so you have your occupation and then some of your areas of expertise, or you could have a headline that is like a branding statement. Or in my case, you can have both. Now, the only way I got to, away with this is that if you don't know this, if you use a Mac as opposed to a PC, then you are allowed more characters. You're allowed up to 160 characters, including spaces, whereas with the PC, you're only allowed up to 120 characters. So I had a little fun with my headline. I made it into more of a sort of enticing, grabbing type thing where I write, fact, being unemployed is no fun. Fact, it's temporary, which it is. And then fact, I'm in your corner. And then I have my areas of expertise listed there. I think it's important that I mention having your areas of expertise listed in your headline, because you can sort of structure your about section based on those areas of expertise. And you should have a fair amount of connections. You should have, hopefully 500 plus, which could mean 501, 1,000, 5,000, whatever it may be, So when I see a profile that only has about 80 connections, then it worries me, because what that means is the person doesn't have a rich network, doesn't have a network then that they can rely on. And as I said, having a focused network is very important. So
Um,
you see, go.
Regarding these connections here, someone's asking, can you explain what you mean by like-minded connections? Do you mean the
Mhm.
same profession or the same industry, or do you think it's worth it to connect with people in other industries who aren't necessarily like-minded?
Yeah, yeah. So absolutely. So if you're talking about who to connect with, then I see it, on the first tier, you would connect with your former colleagues and supervisors if you're unemployed, and then vendors, VARs, OEMs you interacted with. And then, in the second tier, I would connect with people who do the same type of work that you do and are in the same industry. So in my case, it would be career advising, workshop facilitating, public speaking even. And that would be in the career development industry. And then above that, I would, for the third tier, I would have people who do the same type of work that you do, but maybe in different industries. So, an accountant, for instance, an accountant can really connect with people of various industries because, it's a very transferable occupation. Uh, at the very top, I would have alumni. That would be your last group to connect with, would be your alumni. Although I think for younger LinkedIn users, alumni can be very, very helpful. They can be helpful in terms of, informational meeting opportunities and so forth. But don't forget, and this is really important, don't forget that the people who work in your desired companies, in other words, you have a list of companies for which you'd like to work, you want to connect with those people as well. And of course, you want to connect with recruiters, providing that they serve your industry. They're in the same type of industry. So, that's very briefly, the type of people you'd want to connect with. Like-minded, as I say, they pretty much do the same type of work you do and are in the same industry. I strive to do that. So when I want to have people in my network, I'll invite people who do the same type of work, in the same industry and so forth. So, background image is very important. Okay, so there's my background image again. And another one that I wanted to show you would be this guy right here. So Gerald was a customer of mine, a really nice guy. And as I was talking about background images, his is sort of, it's pretty common. It's not anything outstanding. You may want to have an image that is suited toward your interests. So it might necessarily, not have to do with the work that the type of work that you do, but more of what your interests are. So, I have a gentleman who is really interested in the ocean, and um, and so, a background image like this is pretty vibrant, so it describes a lot about his personality. What I think you need to keep in mind is that your profile is a lot about your personality. It's not like your resume, which doesn't allow you as much leeway in that way. But I like to call the profile the personal resume. So you may want a background image like this. Just be prepared for people to ask you, so why do you have that background image? What's so special about that?
Where can people find interesting background images?
Well, they can take their own, and Doug took that photo, or you can Google LinkedIn background images, and they have a pretty good, stock of background images that you can choose from. Okay. So there's a lot, already there's a lot that goes into the snapshot area. And, that's why I call it the snapshot area, because it really is a snapshot of who you are. Now, the contact info. So here's what, remember I said that not many people even bother going into contact info, which is a shame because there's a lot of good information providing people listed there. So you see my public URL, okay, you notice that it's been customized. In other words, there are not a lot of numbers, letters behind it and so on. My website, which is my blog, thingscareerrelated.com, okay. An address, so you wouldn't list your home address, but you could list your secondary email address. And then your email, and this is important, especially if you're looking for work, is that you want it available to everyone. And here's where I find people make the mistake of not going to settings and making it available to everyone. So let's say a recruiter is trying to find you. You don't have it in your contact info, it's going to be very hard for that person to find you. You don't have it in your about section, that person is probably going to give up on finding you. So you really need to make it easy for recruiters to find you. That's the whole thing. And if you're bold enough, you can list your telephone number. A lot of my customers do that as well. And you can see I'm also on Twitter. So there's my Twitter handle. Okay. So, a lot goes into the contact info that people just don't investigate. Now we come to the about section. And this is one of a customer of mine that I really like. Trying to see if I can, there we go. And so, what her first paragraph is about is really about explaining her knowledge of, her occupation and industry. And then, so that would be the solution, that would be the problem. And then she, in her second paragraph, she talks about how she is the solution. Okay, she talks about how, as a software trainer and writer of software navigation documents, I know the importance of correct data and system processing and so forth. And then, the third paragraph is a complimentary paragraph, more like the closing. So I have a proven track record supporting business software, setting up master controls, entering data, and so on. And so, it's like storytelling, your about section. And that's how I explain it. And people have different ways of telling their story. Like some people may prefer to talk about their passion for what they do in the first paragraph. Other people may want to, ask questions and see if they can entice people by doing that. So however you want to do it, you really definitely have to show value in your about section. I've seen more and more that for a lot of LinkedIn profiles, a lot of effort is put in the about section, and maybe not too much in the experience. And I feel that, it's because people realize that the about section is being read. It actually is being read. So I would definitely, invest a lot of time in the about section. Also, you notice that this person has her call to action, which is her email address, and she invites people to contact her via email or on LinkedIn. And one thing I also want to stress in your about section is, Linda, tell me if you can see this.
It looks good.
It looks good?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, cool. All right, so in my about section, you notice that I write, I empower job seekers to land rewarding careers by delivering today's job search strategies in group and individual settings, training job seekers to strengthen their LinkedIn strategy and profile, and so forth. So what I'm saying is that those 3 lines in your about section are very important, and they need to do a really good job of grabbing the reader's attention. You'll also notice as I expand my about section that I use up a lot more characters than the previous one. Okay, you're allowed up to 2,000 characters, and I pretty much use them all. And also what I like to do occasionally is add a splash of color. So for this one, recently received an award for my part in delivering job search webinars. And then for this one, which you've already heard ad nauseum, awarded a LinkedIn Top Voice for 2019. So, you can add a splash of color in that way as well. And what I like to do, and remember I was talking about, in the headline, okay? So for instance, in the headline, I have LinkedIn trainer, career coach, blogger, LinkedIn top voices, and so forth. You notice that in my about section, I have job search strategist, LinkedIn training. And so I'm pretty much following, in terms of the structure, I'm pretty much following what I have in my headline. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, let's see here. So I think you've addressed this already, but Gary asks, why does the About section show various lengths by default? So for example, for some computers it shows 3 lines, but for others it only shows 2.
Oh, that's a good question, because some people, they'll put a space in between, the first and second 2 lines, or a space in between the first, second, and third line. So I would recommend that you try to keep it as one paragraph in your about section. One thing that people do also is they'll have a branding statement, so people will immediately see that, and then they'll only see the first line of, the second and third. So, yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for recent graduates or young professionals that want to work on the About section? What should they include in there?
Well, so speaking of recent graduates, what I would definitely include is the fact that you have graduated from college or high school even, and that you've accomplished some wonderful things. So in order for people to know this, they'll need to go to your education section. Not everyone will scroll all the way down through your whole profile. So you may want to mention this fact in the About section. And I was talking about this earlier as well, is in the accomplishments section, where you have a lot of rich information. You may want to mention in the About section that, hey, you worked on some major projects, which are all in your accomplishment section. Why don't you scroll on down there to see what great kind of projects I've worked on, how I've really helped companies grow, help their bottom line, and so forth. So, that's the About section can be important in that way in terms of guiding people to where to go on your profile.
Great. Feel free to move on. We'll address
Okay.
more questions later.
So at the bottom of the About section, you have featured. And this is a new feature that LinkedIn came up with, which is a lot friendlier in terms of the images and also in terms of usability. So you'll notice that for my featured, I have as the first one my blog. And when I click on it, it's going to go right to my blog. Whereas before, when it was just rich media, there would be another step or two. The same with this, this video that I have there. If I were to play it, you wouldn't be able to hear it, but in any case, it'll go right to that video. So you can, you can post posts. Okay, so if you have a long post that you're really proud of, then you can feature it there. Articles. Okay, so if you have articles that you've written and you're proud of those as well, you can post them there. And then links. So maybe link to a YouTube video, link to a website, and then media. Okay, so if you have documents, or if you have, and I think also going with links would be audio. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can post in that area. Do people necessarily open them all the time? I'm not quite sure, but in any case, featured is a new feature of LinkedIn's that is better than the previous one. So your dashboard, okay, so this is for your eyes only. In other words, you're the only one who sees your dashboard. So you can see how many people have viewed your profile in the past 90 days, how many people have viewed your most recent post. So I have a high number of people who viewed my recent post, and then the number of search appearances you've been in. It also shows you, if you click on who's viewed your profile, it shows you your growth. And so within the past week, mine has grown 51%. I'm not quite sure why, but sometimes this happens. LinkedIn's algorithm is really kind of wonky, so I'm not quite sure. It could drop down 200% next week, but in any case, so this area is for your eyes only. And then activity. And here's where I really look at someone's profile in terms of their activity, because what it says to me whether they've been active, engaged with their connections or not. And in this case, Austin Belsack, he is always active and he's always engaged. And therefore, he's got a lot of followers. You can see he's got 181,000 at that time. I think this screenshot is maybe 2 weeks old or so. He probably has many more than that. And then if I were to click see all and choose between all activities, articles, posts, and documents, then I can see what he's posted. If I clicked articles, I could see the articles he wrote and so forth. People will look at your profile and they will see if you're active on LinkedIn. And if you're not engaging with your connections, then that's not going to be a great sign. Okay, time for another poll. And you can't personalize your experience section. Is this true or false?
Feel free to vote in the poll now, and let's take a question while everyone's voting. Bob Norton asks, how do you balance your activity from being too annoying versus being
Yeah.
the right amount?
Yeah, that's a great question. Don't be like me. I'm one of those annoying types, but I would say that, one post a day would be fine. You can comment, you can react to other people's posts and so forth, but, try to keep it to one post a day at most. In terms of engagement, I would say try to engage at least 4 times a week. And if you're good, you'll engage, 6 times a week or maybe every day. But in any case, yeah. So that's a very good question, because people will be turned off if you are, in their streamline too often and so forth. So that's a very good question.
Great. And it looks like we have the vast majority of people believing that this statement is false. So you can personalize.
Yes, you definitely can. And I believe that you should. And the reason I believe that you should is because, again, this is your personal resume. And if I didn't mention this earlier, I don't think I did, but when you write your about section, write it in first person point of view. You may choose to write it in third person point of view, but most people write theirs in first person point of view. And even in the experience section, you see that this person starts with, I led hiring initiatives for this social service agency to stabilize full life cycle, recruiting process, talent, we secure talent and so forth. So right away, she started writing in first person point of view. And then she has her key focus areas, which I think is probably in the wrong place. I would have placed that down toward the bottom. And then, under career achievements, which is what I believe that you should really focus on, are your achievements and not your duties, not the duties that you performed at work, but really what you accomplished and how you really helped, the company's bottom line. But you can see with these, and many of them are quantified with numbers and percentages. You see that they're not written in first person point of view. But you definitely can even write your bulleted accomplishments in first person point of view. And I'm going to go back to my profile and see if this works. Let me know, Linda. Well, that's not me, but so in my experience section, can everyone see it, Linda?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I start off by, it's like a mission. I'm more than a workshop facilitator and designer. I'm a career and LinkedIn strategist who constantly thinks of ways to better market my customers in their job search. That's my opening, first person point of view. And then for the highlights, the first bullet point reads, I received the 2019 Mass Hire Ingenuity Award for my part in delivering webinars. The second bullet point, to meet the needs of my customers, I have developed more advanced workshops. You see what I mean? So for every bullet, it's written in first person point of view. And I believe that, this is, how it should be done. I really, if you're thinking of your profile as your personal resume, then this is how it should be done. So the answer to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, how should someone navigate the experience section if they've been out of work for a while? Drea asks, what should go in that section if you haven't worked in the past 4 years, but you've been, going to school, consulting, volunteering, etc.
Mhm. So I believe in total transparency. And if you have been doing something of significance, maybe volunteering, for instance, or going back to school or training, then I would note that in the experience section. But be very careful in not, misleading people. So in other words, if you were out of work for 4 years, maybe because of a bad economy and you were job searching, don't try to mislead them by saying that you were doing something, else. But as much as you can, try to show how you've been bettering yourself. Um, I think there's a pretty thin line between what is volunteerism and what is experience in terms of, paid experience. I think, if you volunteer, as I say, for a significant amount of time per week, then you could include that in experience, provided it's in the same line of work that you do, in that it shows value on your profile. So, that's one of the toughest ones, and that also, includes the resume. That's a tough one to crack. Okay. So, okay, so that's just a screenshot of my experience. Now we get to education, and here's where I feel that not enough people take advantage of what they can with their education. In other words, they don't provide enough information. On your resume, you say that you went to a certain school, the degree that you earned, and I really think you should, maybe a designation, magna cum laude or whatever it may be. But here's what LinkedIn really allows you to do. It allows you to get personal in terms of talking about what went on during that time. So I wrote, this was one of the most exciting times of my life as my wife and I were beginning our family. I looked at getting my master's as a goal I had to fulfill. If we had a poll going right now, I'm wondering how many would say, this is not appropriate, this is too personal. But to me, getting personal is okay. If you were to be able to raise your hands, I wonder how many of you would say that you were Division I athlete in school, you were part of the debate team, you were part of the school newspaper. I mean, that's all important information. That's something that should go in your education section. And so for you recent college grads, this is really a place where you need to tout your great, your great projects at school and the grades that you got, received at school, because this is pretty much your most recent achievement. Any more questions? Okay.
Yeah, is the graduation date something you should include in the education section?
So that's funny because it's sort of like a catch-22. If you're an older person like me, okay, and you graduated like 30 million years ago, no, if you graduated, like I did maybe 24 years ago, then you may be concerned about ageism. So I would leave it off. And then again, if you're a recent college grad, it may be appealing to some people to know this because maybe they're looking to hire college grads. But then again, it may be a black mark against you because you may be perceived as not having enough. Oh, someone raised their hand. So you may not, you may be perceived as not having enough experience. So it really is a catch-22. I don't really see any reason why you should include your year of graduation. There's one reason why you would, and that would be that if you're using the Find Alumni or See Alumni feature, then that will direct you to the people who were at school at the same time you were. But if you're familiar with this feature on LinkedIn, See Alumni, then you realize that you can choose the years that you want to look for alumni on that page.
Okay, two more things. What about GPA? Should you include that in your education section? And also, what about any online courses you've taken, such as through Coursera or Udemy?
For what was the first one?
So GPA.
Oh, GPA. Oh, that, that's up to you. I would go with the designation instead, but I mean, anyone can figure out what magna cum laude is, or cum laude, or whatever it is. I would go with the designation if you have it. If you were talking about your bachelor's degree, the same thing would apply on your resume. Is anything below 3.5, you don't list. If you're talking about your master's, I would say anything below 3.7, maybe 3.8, you wouldn't list as well. It's funny because I did have my grade point average on my profile previously. So yeah, so I really think that people don't really make use of this section as well as they can.
All right,
What's
and
the second question? Oh, the Coursera and Udemy and LinkedIn Learning. No, those I think would go in the certification section.
okay, great.
Yep. So now we come to skills and endorsements, which is really funny because if you think about how I've been going through this, it pretty much mimicked the resume. So you have the about section, you have experience, then education, and then, but usually after about, or the summary on your resume, you would have your core competencies or your skills. So this is listed further down on your profile. And one thing that burns me about LinkedIn as well is that all of your sections are anchored. In other words, you can't move them. You can't move your section, so you can't move your skills and endorsements to underneath about. But so here we come to skills and endorsements, and this is where you need to list the skills that are very relevant to your occupation and industry, and also the skills that you're proficient in. LinkedIn allows you to list up to 50 skills. You can list all 50, or like myself, you can list about 37. I mean, whatever applies to you. The other thing about skills and endorsements is that people will generally endorse you for the top 3 skills, and then they won't even look below. So do people a favor, when you're endorsing them for their skills, click show more, and then endorse them for other skills, because they have more skills than the top 3, and they have more value than what's listed in the top 3. So look down below and endorse them for those skills. So you may be wondering, well, how can I endorse someone for skills when I haven't, seen them perform those skills? If you get a good sense from reading their profile that they know what they're talking about, then you can endorse them for their skills. Or you can take their word for it, and if they list, skills like these on the top 3, you can definitely endorse them for those skills. I think that, the endorsements feature is not a great feature. I think it was invented to create more activity. I've seen that sort of wane lately. I've seen the activity go down in terms of endorsements, but since it's there, if you want endorsements, then you're going to have to endorse other people. People sometimes ask me, well, should I ask for endorsements? And to that I say, no, ask for recommendations, but don't ask for endorsements. Rather, endorse people, and then they will endorse you back, most likely. So recommendations. This is where, again, LinkedIn has sort of dropped the ball, because recommendations is now anchored almost all the way to the bottom in the seller, where recommendations at one time were the favorite feature of recruiters, of hiring managers, and HR, because people could just read your recommendations and see your greatness. But do people scroll all the way down to recommendations necessarily? Not always. Not always. And really, they're not even considered as part of becoming all-star status anymore. Instead, skills and endorsements has replaced that. But recommendations, it's important that you ask for recommendations, because what other people write about you sometimes means more than what you write about yourself. So don't be afraid to ask your former supervisor for recommendation. I mean, the worst that person can say is no. But if the person says yes and the recommendation isn't coming anytime soon, then what you could do is you could write your own recommendation and ask that person if she'll approve it. And most likely she'll be very happy to approve it. So, and the other thing is, if you in the past supervised or managed other people, write them recommendations, and don't wait for them to ask you to write a recommendation. Just go ahead and write them the recommendation and send it to them. This is a great way to really, help people in their job search. It's just a nice gift when someone sees that they received a recommendation from you. So, in addition to that, it shows your authority and also what you value in employees. Okay, time for another poll. Linda, I didn't realize I had so many polls in here. Okay.
I like them.
Good. Are you happy with your profile? Wow, the polls are going crazy on this one.
Yeah, let's take another question here. Someone's asking, is it possible to change the order that the recommendations are listed, or is it just based on most recent?
Based on most recent.
All right.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing is way back in the day, we used to have that ability to really move things about. I have a professional resume writer who runs his own business. And when the recommendations were anchored at the bottom, I asked him, I said, so, are you unhappy by this? Because now you can't use those as testimonials, because previously he had them listed right at the top. When we could move things, he had them listed right at the top underneath the back then summary. And he had like 69 recommendations. These were clients of his who wrote nice things about him. And then so when they got anchored down at the bottom, then he had to tell people in his about section to read down below where you can see my recommendations. Okay, so it seems like the majority of people are not too happy with their profile. And this always concerns me because, I want people to be happy with their profile. What I don't want is I don't want to see people just copy and paste their resume to their profile and leave it at that. So, if you are at that stage, then just take it further and start to personalize your profile, make it more of a networking document. Okay. So in wrapping it up, be sure that before you write your profile, or even after you've written it, that you really reflect in terms of what you want to say on your profile, because you really do want to brand yourself in a very positive way and in a very consistent way as well. So make sure you have all the sections completed. If you don't have all the sections completed, you won't get all-star status, but there are some cases where you can't claim to be currently working, and therefore you can't get all-star status. Your profile alone won't garner a high ranking, so remember that as well. Remember that it's also about creating a like-minded network, and also engaging with your network. So this is how you can find me. You can find me by going to my blog, which is thingscareerrelated.com. And if you want to follow me, then you can go to linkedin.com/in/Bob McIntosh. And I'm always welcome to have you follow me. Now, as a treat to John Shields, who is the marketing manager at Jobscan, I'm going to critique his profile. He knows I'm going to do this, and he's going to see this at a later date. So I guess I should be, kind to him. But in any case, I think I'm going to have to. There we go. I'll hear my dog barking in the background, huh? Okay, so the right at the beginning, I like his profile. It's sort of got a pretty humorous touch to it. I like the way he brands himself in terms of the Jobscan logo and hack your job search, get more interviews. You know, um, he does a really terrific job in terms of writing articles and have people write articles about how to use Jobscan, how to get around the applicant tracking systems, and such, and in other career advice. So I really appreciate that. I like his photo. Um, he has sort of like a mischievous look in it, but I like his photo a lot. The one thing I would suggest is that he doesn't go by the default headline, which is marketing manager at JobScan. Now, he could do that. He could go marketing manager at JobScan and then list some areas of expertise. Some people don't realize this, but when they enter a new job, then the default is their title plus where they're working. Okay, so that's one thing I would change. He's got a good number of connections, 500 plus. Not quite sure how many he has overall. I'd have to ask him. In terms of contact info, let's check it out. Okay, so he has his profile that has been customized. He's got his email address. And now I don't know if it's because he and I are first degree connections or he's making it available to everyone. But you know, you have the option of making it available to everyone, your first and second and third degree connections, or just your first and second degree connections, or just your first degree connections. So as I said, for those of you who are looking for work, make your email address available to everyone on LinkedIn. And then he's also got a Twitter account, so I can check him out on Twitter. And this tells us when he and I connected. So this is odd because he doesn't list where he went to college. And this is a live link. So if I were to click this, it takes me to JobScan. If he had his college listed, then I could go to that, which I know is Clark College. In any case, he and I have 153 mutual connections, which is pretty good because if I wanted to connect with someone, you know, who's of a second degree and he knows someone on this list, then maybe he could, you know, refer me to that person. He could introduce me to 6 people at ESPN. That I thought was pretty impressive. So I was talking to Linda earlier about this, and I was saying there seems to be something wrong with this picture. And what I meant was that he doesn't have an about section. And you know, for one reason or another, he chose not to. But in any case, you know, from my experience, it's usually because people don't really know quite what they want to say in it, or they don't feel it's important. But in any case, I would suggest that he has an about section. He definitely has some features. In this case, it's a YouTube video. I'm not going to click on it because you probably can't hear it. In this case, it brings us to the blog. Okay, and whenever John writes something, people listen. So you may want to go to his profile. First of all, follow him, and then click on the blog. So for activity, he's pretty active, and you know, he does it in a pretty tasteful way. In other words, he doesn't, as who was it, Norman, who said earlier, how do you not be obnoxious in terms of posting? I don't see him posting every single day, but he does post a good amount. And, you know, that's what I'm most interested in seeing in people is what they've posted. Articles are nice as well. But I have to tell you that LinkedIn article feature is sort of gone by the wayside. All activities, you're just going to get a bunch of responses to what he's posted, and you know, so just focus on what people have posted. Okay. So in his experience section, since he's pretty new to the marketing manager position, he doesn't write that much about it. Which is fine, you know, because when you're new to a position, you don't have a lot to write, other than the fact that we sort of have to read between the lines in terms of managing 3 full-time employees in addition to several freelancers. That's a lot of work, you know, and that takes a lot of time management and a lot of skill to do. as a content manager, which is when I probably met him a little earlier than that, you can see that he has a lot of quantified results, and these really pop out. You know, increased blog organic search traffic 121%, and overall organic search 150% from 2017 to 2018. I mean, this is the stuff that's really, really good, that's really juicy. So I like this part of it. What I would do if, to make it just a little more appealing, I might add maybe some stars, okay? Or maybe diamonds. You can see I'm going to my profile, sort of biased, right? You know, some side words, triangles, just to replace those little dots, okay? Because what happens when you write something in Word and you paste it onto your profile, then whatever you know, all those nice bullets, they just sort of go away and they're replaced by little dots. So that's just something that I would recommend to make it a little more appealing. Okay, so remember I talked about how the process of featured was a little cumbersome. They haven't yet done anything with the experience or education sections. So if I were to click on Jobscan, I would have to click View. Okay, and then this is a report. So it just takes a lot of effort, but he does make use of his rich media areas. This is good. Okay, so he was a content writer. And again, you know, he is using some percentages. What I would suggest is that he make his paragraphs no more than 3 or 4 lines, because it's easier to digest information with shorter paragraphs. Okay, so I see, you know, he's been at this company for a while. He's held multiple positions there for 6 years. So that's what I like, you know, what like they did with the positions is, instead of, you know, when you entered them as separate positions, instead of making it look like 2, you know, or 3 or 4 or 5 companies, they grouped them all underneath one. So I like the way that they sort of did that. Okay, education, as I say, I don't know why he didn't link it to the top, but this is where he went to school. Again, I would mention more about, you know, what he did in school. Maybe he was the editor of the the newspaper, which would be a big deal, and so forth. And he's got his certifications. So search engine optimization, that's huge. I didn't really go into great detail about what he's written in you know, in his experience, but he does have a lot of experience in SEO. And I noticed that I have not endorsed him for any skills, so I am definitely going to endorse him for writing, because he is a great writer. Editing. Okay, and I don't need to declare our relationship. Blogging as well. And remember to look below. Make sure you look below to see other skills. So SEO, just based on what he's written on his profile, I believe that he's good at that. People management, what do you think, Linda? Is he good at managing people?
I think so.
You're being recorded on this. Okay. So, you know, just really endorse people for what you know they're good at. Copywriting, obviously. Okay. Recommendations. Now, here's the sign of a giver, is someone who has given more recommendations than has received. So he's asked for fewer recommendations. I would say that he should ask for more. I don't see James's name here. He should ask for James Hughes' recommendation. Doesn't mean that he's going to be leaving, but in any case. So, and then there we go. And the accomplishments, which we don't see because It's almost like a, second thought. It's down below here. Okay, so where again, and I didn't go over this in great detail, honors and awards, projects, which I think is huge. I think you should be able to separate these like you were able to in the day. I think you should be able to separate these and list them as a separate section. But the best you can really do is you can tell people in your about section to go down to the accomplishments. So overall, I like it. I would definitely suggest that he gets an about section. I'd really love to see what he would write. I bet he would write some really flowing. Wait, you know what? Yeah, I thought this would be a good start. My granddad never entered management despite persistent opportunity. It wasn't worth the aggro, he'd say. Something that would catch people's attention in the first 3 lines. That's what you want to do.
Thanks for that profile critique, Bob. I think John will really appreciate that. With that, let's move on to some questions. I see a lot in the chat here, and we'll try to address as many as we can. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to everyone. But Bob, as we take some questions, do you mind sharing your contact information with everyone again?
Sure, yeah. Let me bring it up.
We've got a lot of questions about a couple of different LinkedIn features. Reggie asks about the LinkedIn Learning certifications. Is there a disadvantage in putting all the certifications you earned on your LinkedIn, or should we only pick a few to feature?
Well, okay, so that's a good question because that talks to branding, but I would say it's not a disadvantage to do it. I would say from talking with recruiters that, the LinkedIn Learning is good because it shows that you're really trying to better yourself, but they wouldn't consider that, real-time training. But yeah, so, Reggie, I would, and in this, I believe you can, because I think I have this, I believe that you can reorder in terms of the certifications area.
Yes. Bob, what are your thoughts on LinkedIn Easy Apply? Is it a good option, and how do recruiters really feel about it?
So I've heard some negative press on it, but I don't know why, because to me, what Easy Apply does for the recruiters and HR is it, first of all, lets them see your profile. So if you're happy with your profile, then there should be no problem. Also, if you have your resume attached, which is tailored to that particular job, no problem. What you have to realize is that certain information is going to go through on their end. One thing they're going to be looking for are any common connections. So if you're connected with people that they're connected with, that's a plus, because that means they can reach out to them unbeknownst to you. They're going to look at your skills, okay, the skills that you have that match the job they're trying to fill. So it's really a matter of applying for the right job, in my opinion. Companies pay money. They pay money to have Easy Apply on their in the job orders.
Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on LinkedIn Premium? Is it worth the investment, and do job seekers need it to be successful?
No. Well, let me just backtrack on that, because I want to show you that I don't have it. I had it for a while, and $60 is a lot to pay, because what I really wanted was I wanted the business premium because I wanted to be able to have unlimited searches. I haven't been using that feature very often, and really it hasn't. It definitely hasn't hurt the number of followers I've been getting. In fact, since I've dropped it, I'm getting more followers. But that's being said, what I would do is, if you have the opportunity to try it for free, then do that, because I don't like to tell people what to do in terms of the premium accounts. I just say try it for free, and if you like it, then purchase it. I have had customers or clients who have used it, to use the in-mail feature, and reached out to, people in HR, gotten interviews and so forth. There is some you know, there's some data, some information on certain jobs that can be of use. It's really up to you. One thing I do really like about it is I like the fact that you can use LinkedIn Learning or lynda.com, you know, because I think you can take some really good courses there. Back to Reggie's point, yeah, it is a really good feature. Another feature that's nice is if you're really looking at people who viewed your profile, you can go back the past 90 days to see those people. If you notice, when I showed you the people who viewed my profile, where is it? Only the most recent 5 show up. Okay, so if you're really trying to, you know, see people who viewed your profile, then you're going to constantly have to go to your, you know, who's viewed your profile to see who the most recent 5 are.
Mhm. A couple people asked, if you're multilingual, where is the best place to include other languages you know?
If it is really a selling point, I would mention it in the about section. Okay, maybe make it one of your little paragraphs. What people don't know about me is that I'm bilingual in Spanish, Portuguese, Khmer, whatever it may be, and make sure you have it front and center. There is a section for accomplishments for languages, but you know, guess what? People probably aren't going to go down there to see it. So I would put it front and center. You may even, if it is really important to the work you do, put it in your headline. Okay, so if you have room in your headline, then that could be one of your areas of expertise, uh, you know, listed last or something like that. Fluent in, you know, whatever it may be, Russian and so forth.
Mhm. Regarding connections, Mary asks, does it matter if you don't know your connections in real life? How do you go about accepting requests from people you don't know?
Well, you know, the old saying is that you're not going to get to know someone unless you connect with them, right? That's all it's all about. You know, that's what it's about. If you're going to if you receive an invite from someone who you don't know, what you really need to do is, first of all, think, did they send me a personalized invite? I think that's really important. If someone sends you a personalized invite, then that means they put the effort into at least thinking about how they know you and how you and they can benefit from each other. Um, and as I say, you know, you're only going to get to know people by connecting with people. And once you've accepted their invite, or once someone has accepted your invite, then reach out some more. You know, start a conversation going. I've met many great people on LinkedIn who I didn't know at first. And then once I got to know them, if it really clicked, I mean, if there was real chemistry, then what happened?
All right. Any tips
Did
for
we run
those?
out of time?
We can take a couple more questions as we wrap it up here.
Okay.
Any tips for those career transitioners out there? What if someone has no experience in the field they're transferring to but looking to gain experience?
Then I would do a good job of explaining it in the about section. In other words, you can say in the about section that you're transitioning to a new career. This is the type of career that you want to do, and then based on your transferable skills, this will make the transition possible. So I would definitely explain that in the about section. You know, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because some recruiters hate functional resumes, but unfortunately, LinkedIn's experience section goes in reverse chronology. So, you know, you can't do anything about your work history. What you can do, and I did write a blog on a post on this, is that you can sort of make your about section your functional piece of your resume, of your profile too. Yeah.
Nice. Kimberly asks, she's heard that you should always have a present role in your experience section, but she's recently been laid off. What would you recommend?
Well, I don't believe in creating a company called Me, you know, Me Incorporated. I don't believe in making up a company and a title unless you are really using it, unless you really are, say, you are a consultant, you are, you know, doing it at least 20 hours a week. That's legitimate, most definitely. But if you get called and you've been out of work for 6 months and they say, so it looks like you've been consulting. So how much work have you been doing? And you say, oh, maybe 4 hours a week. Then that's not a job. I say that you may forget to close your job out for 3 months. That might be acceptable, but after that, I think you got to be real.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, what are your thoughts on, writing, seeking new opportunities or unemployed? Is
I
that?
think, yeah, I think it's a waste of space in your headline. I don't know how many characters it takes up. I forget. I thought maybe like 20 characters, including spaces. There is a hashtag ONO, open to new opportunities, you may want to use instead. But I think really what you want in a headline is something that shows value. And then, as the example I showed you, yep, hashtag ONO, the hashtag that I mean, rather the example I showed you, it talked about which direction she's heading in. But, she didn't really make it front and center.
Mm-hmm.
And besides, no recruiters are typing in seeking new opportunities.
Yeah.
Or maybe some do, but most don't.
Yeah. Let's take one or two more questions here. Satish asks, would it make sense to include short-term seasonal job experience? For example, a role that lasts 3 to 4 months. Maybe some recruiters don't like to see that short.
As long as in parentheses you write seasonal or a consultant, contracting. Recruiters understand that people take contracting roles.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend that people take contracting roles so they can stay in the workforce, so they can keep their skills up. So I have no problem with that. I mean, you just have to state in parentheses contractor, consultant, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. And sort of on the flip side of that, how far should people go back when listing jobs? Should they list out their entire life's worth of work experience, or should they only go back a certain number of years?
No, when I talk about writing resumes, I say go back only 10 or 15 years in your work history, because it's irrelevant beyond then, and also you may be concerned about ageism. So I say be consistent with your profile. So 10 or 15 years. Unfortunately you can't write a section called additional experience, where you can list, like, let's say you worked at some great companies like Wang or Digital or Harvard or wherever it may be, Stanford, out your way. You would have to definitely put the dates that you worked at said companies.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we are just about up on our time here. I know we have a lot of questions that we didn't address. Sorry about that, but thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you again, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think we all got a lot out of your presentation, and hopefully everyone feels a little more confident in navigating their LinkedIn profiles now. I hope to see some of you at our other webinars this week, and I'll leave it off at that. So best of luck to all of you in your job searches and navigating these very difficult times. And thank you, Bob.
Hey, thanks, Linda. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Online listings make applying for jobs easier than ever. So why aren't you getting a response from employers? Easy applications means more applicants, which means more competition. Leading companies use automated software tools called applicant tracking systems, or ATS, that weed out many resumes before they even reach a real person. So how do you cut through the noise? With Jobscan. Jobscan uses artificial intelligence to get your resume past the filters. We've reverse engineered their systems to create an intelligent tool that provides proprietary insights to optimize your resume at a much deeper level, so you can tailor your resume for each job based on precise keywords and skills most valued by the company. Jobscan can even optimize your LinkedIn profile so company recruiters find you before you even know they're looking for your skill set. Let Jobscan maximize your chances with every application. Register for your free account and run your first scan today.